Nobody ever sat you down and said, your feelings don't matter. They didn't have to. They taught you with timing, with tone, with what happened to the room when you expressed something they didn't want to hear. You cried and someone sighed. You got angry and someone left. You said you were scared and someone told you not to be. And slowly, without a single explicit lesson, you learned the curriculum. Some feelings are allowed. Others make love disappear. This is emotional dismissal. And it's invisible because it doesn't look like cruelty. It looks like a parent who says, you're fine when you're not. A household where composure is rewarded and emotion is inconvenient. A childhood where nobody hit you. Nobody screamed. They just made it clear, through 1,000 small signals, that what you felt was not welcome here. In this video, we're looking at 10 quiet signs that you grew up inside that curriculum. And for each one, we'll trace the childhood moment that taught you the rule, and the now, what it became in the way you handle your own feelings today. Because the dismissal didn't delete the feeling, it taught you to delete it yourself. Emotional dismissal isn't the same as emotional absence. Absence means no one was there. Dismissal means someone was there. And they made it clear that what you were feeling was wrong, excessive, inconvenient, or imaginary. The child doesn't conclude, my parent has a limited emotional range. The child concludes, I feel too much. I am too much. And from that conclusion, they build an entire operating system designed to reduce their own emotional output to the level the household could tolerate. That operating system is still running. Every sign below is a feature of it. Number 1. Something happens, and before you have even processed it, you're already telling yourself it's not a big deal. Then, someone said that to you first. You fell and cried, and the response was, you're fine, get up. You lost something that mattered, and the response was, it's not the end of the world. The message was clear. What you're feeling is disproportionate to what happened. Scale it down. Now, you do it to yourself before anyone gets the chance. You shrink the feeling preemptively. A relationship ends, and you're already rehearsing why it's not that bad. Something at work stings, and you're rationalizing it away before the sting has time to register. You became your own dismisser, faster and more efficient than the original one ever was. Because if you minimize it first, no one else can make you feel foolish for feeling it. Number 2, you preface every feeling with a disclaimer. Sorry, I know this is silly, but... Then, expressing sadness or frustration was met with a shift in the room. The parent's face changed. The warmth cooled. Not because your feeling was destructive, but because it was inconvenient. And you learned that having emotions costs something. Every time you felt something out loud, you watched the relational price tag appear. Now, you can express a feeling without apologizing for it first. Sorry, this might be dramatic, but I know I shouldn't feel this way, but the apology isn't politeness. It's a preemptive payment on a debt you learned in childhood. Feelings cost love, so at least acknowledge you know the price before spending. Number 3, someone asks how you feel, and a genuine blank opens up. Then nobody asked, or worse, they told you what you felt. You're not angry, you're tired. You're not sad, you're being dramatic. The child's emotional vocabulary was overwritten by the parent's version, and when someone else names your feelings for you long enough, you lose the ability to name them yourself. Now, you genuinely don't know what's happening inside you. You know something is off, but you can't locate it. You say, I'm stressed as a catch-all for grief, anger, loneliness, and fear, because stress is the only word the system has left. The emotional dictionary was never built, not because you're unemotional, but because the language was dismissed before you could learn it. And the body holds what the mind can't name. The tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your limbs, the restlessness that won't settle. Those are feelings. They're just speaking a language nobody taught you to translate. Number 4, you can't just say you're upset. You have to build a case for it. Then, your feelings needed a reason to be taken seriously. Why are you upset? Wasn't a caring question. It was a cross-examination. If the reason wasn't good enough, the feeling was dismissed. So you learned to prepare evidence, to justify, to make your emotions legally defensible before presenting them. Now, you can't say I'm hurt without a paragraph of context, 3 examples, and a disclaimer that you might be wrong. You over-explain because bare feelings weren't accepted in your household. They needed a case number to be processed. And you're still filing the paperwork every time you feel something that needs to be heard. Number 5, you have a strict internal rule. Crying happens behind closed doors or not at all. Then, crying in front of people was met with discomfort, irritation, or punishment. The parent didn't comfort, they corrected. Stop crying. There's nothing to cry about. If you don't stop, I'll give you something to cry about. The tears weren't met with arms. They were met with consequences. Now, you wait. You hold it together through the funeral, the breakup, the bad news. You keep the surface still, and then later, alone, in your car, or your shower, or your bed, you let it come, quietly, controlled. The crying happens on your terms, in private, where it can't cost you anything, and if someone catches you mid-cry, you feel not relief but exposure, as if you've been caught doing something you weren't supposed to do. Number 6. When something painful happens, your voice shuts off. Then, speaking up about pain made things worse. You told someone you were hurt and they got angry. You expressed discomfort and you were told you were ungrateful. The feedback loop was clear. Pain expressed equals more pain received. So the system learned to go quiet at the exact moment volume was most needed. Now, when something hurts, a comment, a situation, a betrayal, you don't speak. You don't argue. You don't cry. You go flat. You process internally, rapidly, alone. And the people around you think you're unbothered. They think you handle things well. They don't realize the silence isn't peace. It's a survival reflex from a house where noise meant danger. Number 7, your deepest wounds come out as punchlines. Then, humor was the only emotional channel that stayed open. You could be sad if it was funny. You could be scared if you made people laugh about it. The household didn't make room for raw emotion, but it tolerated comedy. So you learned to package every real feeling in a joke, because jokes were the only container that didn't get sent back. Now, you make people laugh about things that actually destroyed you, your childhood, your failures, your loneliest moments, all delivered with timing and a punchline. And people think you're resilient. You're not. You're performing the only version of honesty your system allows. The pain is real. The laugh is the disguise it has to wear to be allowed in the room. And sometimes, mid-joke, you catch someone's eyes and see that they know. They can hear the real thing underneath the punchline, and that moment of being seen through the humor is both the most terrifying and the most human experience you've had all week. Number 8. You're excellent at holding space for other people's feelings. When someone reaches for you, you deflect. Then, you learned to attend to other people's emotions because that was safer than attending to your own. The parent needed managing, the household needed stabilizing, and somewhere in the process, your role shifted from someone who has feelings to someone who handles them. Other people's, never your own. Now, a friend reaches out during your hard moment and you redirect. I'm okay, how are you doing? A partner tries to comfort you and you stiffen. Not because you don't want it, because your system doesn't have a receiving dock for comfort. It was never built. The infrastructure goes one way, outward, and the tenderness coming toward you hits a wall you didn't know was there. Number 9, the 2 most automated words in your vocabulary. Then, the real answer was never welcome. How are you? Wasn't an invitation, it was a formality. And the one time you answered honestly, the response taught you not to do it again. So you installed a default, I'm fine, efficient, unquestioned, safe. Now, you say it to coworkers, to friends, to partners, to therapists. You say it when you're grieving. You say it when you're drowning. You say it so automatically that sometimes you don't even realize you've said it until after the conversation is over and you're alone with the feeling you just locked out. I'm fine isn't a status update. It's a gate that closes before anyone can get to what's behind it. And the cruelest version is when a partner who genuinely wants to know asks, "How are you, really?" And the gate closes anyway. Not because you don't trust them, because the closing is faster than the trusting. The reflex outpaces the relationship. Number 10, the thread that connects every sign on this list. You feel guilty simply for having feelings that require someone else's attention. Then, your emotions were treated as a disruption, not maliciously maybe, but consistently. The parents sighed when you were sad, changed the subject when you were scared, left the room when you were angry, and the cumulative message was, your feelings take up space, and that space isn't free. It costs the people around you, and you are responsible for that cost. Now, you cannot express a feeling without the guilt arriving alongside it. You share something vulnerable and immediately feel like you've imposed. You take up emotional space in a conversation and spend the next hour wondering if you were too much. The guilt isn't rational, it's architectural. It was built into the foundation of every relationship you learn to have. And the deepest version of it sounds like this. If I feel things out loud, I become a burden. And if I become a burden, I become unlovable. That's the invisible curriculum, not don't feel. Just don't feel where anyone can see you. Don't feel in a way that requires a response. Don't feel louder than the room can hold. And the child who followed that curriculum grew into an adult who carries every emotion alone, in silence, wondering why connection always feels like something they're watching from the outside. If you recognized yourself in these 10 signs, the most important thing I can tell you is this. The curriculum was wrong, not your feelings. The curriculum. Your feelings were never too much. They were normal-sized feelings that landed in an undersized room, and the solution was never to make yourself smaller. It was to find rooms that are big enough. You don't have to unlearn the whole system at once. You just have to start by noticing the moments when you dismiss yourself and asking, is this my voice, or is this the old classroom speaking? At Inner Lens, we trace the classrooms you didn't know you were in. If this one resonated, the next video follows a thread from a similar childhood, the quiet signs you were shamed into hiding who you really are. It's right here.